So, hey, we have to start doing response videos, though, where we listen to some opera. And then we respond with, like, unbelievable, wow, or, and that's what's called poor singing.
Okay, we could also respond to viewers' questions if anybody wants to ask us any.
We have to get some viewers first.
Okay, well, I understand there are a couple over there at the symphony.
There are a couple at the symphony.
A couple of people.
I've heard that one of the what are they called? Where they haven't won a chair yet, but they're
candidates.
Not candidates, just not adjunct.
Deputies.
No, we're talking about orchestra players.
Yeah, Deps. You're on the Dep list.
Okay.
At least in London. I don't know.
So our friend Craig said that knows this guy and I guess came across our content and listened to everything. He loved it.
Really? Maybe that's why he hasn't got the chair.
That could be. Anyone who likes us, their musical taste is in question.
Well,
because, I
mean,
it's so difficult
to
recognize.
The aim of this podcast is simply to share impressions of what we're hearing, what we're seeing, maybe draw on some of the experience that we've had and try to opine and talk about, maybe engender a conversation about some of the classical arts that are going on in town that we've been a part of through the years and that we value. So maybe, I'm not Deems Taylor, but, I've been on the inside of it and I have opinions. So, we welcome discussion.
Yeah. And my goal is more along the lines of helping to define and spread the rules of enjoying, not just attending. Everyone gets caught up on attendance rules, and those are a barrier for a general audience. What do I wear? The clapping thing. I'm so tired of the clapping issue.
Well, yeah.
But
no, I have no. I'll tell you this. By the end of the mainly Mozart, apparently clapping between movements is what we do in San Diego now. And
some nights it was
perfect. At the beginning of the season, I was like, you know what? I don't care.
No.
If it's that good and if it moves you to clap, for heaven's sake, clap. I mean, and Michael Francis during one of the movies, I think maybe after the first minute of the Beethoven, he turned around and looked at the audience like,
right.
But look, it's pointless to squash it because the audience needs to be re-engaged. The audience in Grand Opera has been stifled. They have been stifled. They no longer know their cues. They are not approaching it from a point of view of fanatics, and expressing themselves as thinking, this is our moment now. Because it is a holistic sort of experience. There has to be, it's not just all coming from the stage and going out. The audience has to give back. In the first place, you got to give us a chance to take a breather for a second because, you wear yourself out.
In American opera, part of that is the conductor,
it's got to be a cycle. Well, yes, it's the conductor, but for instance, in the move towards financial economy, the intervals are cut down to the absolute bare minimum, and that includes the excising of bows between acts for performers who may not be coming back. They may be done.
Yeah.
Right? There's a reason. And also, it builds up the muscles of the audience's reactions if they are encouraged to say, yes, I value this enough to actually express myself at the end of the act. Then we're going to go out in the lobby and we're going to have a good conversation about what we just saw. That's what's supposed to happen. And then you get things like, let's do the Flying Dutchman as if it's a movie. We'll just do it straight through and it'll be 2 hours. That was an Ian Campbell economization. Great idea. Just completely take the audience's role away from them entirely. Cut out the social experience completely.
Well, none of us know how to be logisti anyway. The loggia. Is that
the
logisti?
Logisti.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's true. But I mean,
that would be the balcony dwellers at La Scala.
When the young man who played the Beethoven violin concerto,
Augustin Hadlich.
Augustin Hadlich. I haven't. There were a few people in that audience that tried on the woo woo woo. Woo
at the end.
At the end, that was very quickly murdered by choruses of bravo.
Yeah.
I haven't heard an opera house roar like that in San Diego for a very long time. Death to woo-woo. It's not enough. This is an audience critique moment. I'm telling you guys, it's not enough. You cheer bravo or bravi or brava the same way with the same visceral emotion that you cheer goal at a soccer match. It has to have that sporting viscerality.
Yeah.
That's what is supposed to be being brought out of the audience and released by the artist's efforts. Please be aware of that and maybe try to respond to it. I mean, we may not have Pavarotti. You know, there are a lot of good singers out there. The problem is no one knows who they are because the marketing systems, the record labels, the promotions, it's all gone.
Yeah.
These people are still out there busting their behinds. But
this is I believe our mission.
This is our mission
because many people don't. It feels to me as if a lot of people who go to the opera actually can't recognize good singing when it happens.
No, because they have been they haven't been fed the diet and frequency to be able to know, you know, relative to one thing to another, what is adequate, what is subpar, and what is truly superior. I mean, we verged on the superior in Carmen this year. I mean, that young tenor that we had. You know, I remember at the beginning of rehearsals, we all thought, is he going to blow this out in rehearsals?
I was concerned.
He has no filter. It all comes out or nothing comes out, you know. And he never blew it out. No. He did the business.
Was it the second performance? Maybe it was the second performance, second or third, where I was like, wow, I could not ask for anything better.
No, you really can't, especially here in San Diego. We're this far from the center of things, as it were, you know. And we get that. I mean, the whole public in San Diego should have known about it. There should have been 8 performances of Carmen, not 4, and they should have been full because you don't hear a Don Jose.
You don't
that solid very often.
This was my 4th Carmen, and the first time we had a serviceable Jose.
Yeah.
Now we had Richard Leach previously, but he was. That's the last thing he's done here.
Yeah,
it might have been the last thing he did anywhere. I have no idea.
And he never should have sung that role either. I mean, because that's what killed him in the end. Was he was the most fabulous lyric French tenor.
His Faust was incredible. Oh, that EMI recording is
phenomenal. His first performance here was in Faust. I mean, when he was in his 20s, and I was in it. It was 85, 86. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was ravishing, and they did the same thing to him that they did to Roberto Alagna. Record Trovatore. We need another Pavarotti.
Yeah.
No.
Well, Pavarotti's not a great Manrico.
No, but I mean, we need that. We need somebody who's going to be the great recording artist.
I will say, I heard him in L.A. as Cavaradossi in Tosca, and I was blown away.
Well, it lasted for a while, but then it didn't last anymore. I mean, because. And I remember our teacher, I remember Bob saying...
But I've always found him to be a very...
Oh, the Pagliacci that he did here?
Oh.
Bad.
No, he kind of...
It was wrecked by that time. Or was it Cavalleria?
It was Torrido in Cavalleria.
Cavalleria, it was bad.
And then Jose Cura was Canio in Pagliacci.
It was very bad. And it was painful to listen to because of...
The Siciliana is not easy. To start a show.
I remember hearing Alagna in recital in London at the very beginning, and he sang an aria from Joseph by Eliyahu Mayul.
Okay.
This is like 19th century romantic opera come to Jesus in whole notes. You know, if you look at it on the page, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my life. And I thought to myself, if he can, that guy right there can do the same thing for French romantic opera, like that nobody's ever heard in the 20th century, that Callas and Sutherland did, and make it the most exciting thing they did for Bel Canto, and he can make that the most exciting thing anybody will ever hear. And the first thing they said was, "Record Trovatore."
It was a little bit after.
Not much.
But
not much.
Yeah, it was. It's unfortunate because listening to him now, the top is hazy and
The one thing,
there's no. I know some people don't like the word focus or point, but there's no.
no,
point
there
to
isn't.
the
I mean,
top.
I saw him in Fiat de Regiment,
Oh, okay.
I think. That's the one with Belcore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In I think 2016,
Okay. So.
and about 3 years ago, or maybe it was 2012. I can't quite
Well,
remember.
Belcore,
Wait, no, that's
Elixir of
L'Elisir
Love.
d'Amore. It was L'Elisir d'Amore. Sorry.
Yeah.
And at the end of the first act, he like raked his B natural, and everyone went.
Yeah.
But Alanya is a wonderful actor. He's a good comedian. He has fun on stage, and he enjoys being there, and he enjoys communicating that to the audience. And he regrouped himself, and he came back and had a very strong second act, and just had plain fun, and the audience loved him for it.
Right.
So that's where he was a few years
Yeah.
ago. And
Well, Pavarotti and the three tenors in general create a false expectation for careers, in my opinion.
yeah,
Delmonico did not sing Daughter of the Regiment
no,
or The Elixir of Love.
no, but that wasn't his voice type either.
Exactly, but Pavarotti sang Otello, and Pavarotti sang
Well,
Manrico.
but that's
And
all
he
the more
sang-
remarkable because he could.
He
And-
could, but it was still, in my opinion, inappropriate, even though it sold tickets and it made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so now every
Well,
every
are we to
singer-
say that Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau should never sing Hans Sachs because it's not his Fach? But
Yeah.
I mean,
well, first of all, I'm not a Fisher Dieskau fan.
well, I have to admire the musicianship and the
Sure,
range
just-
of the man.
But the
I mean,
voice
it's nothing
acting
else.
never did anything for me.
Oh, it did for me in Lieder,
Okay,
but
but that's Lieder.
that's Lieder.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's look, Pavarotti. You can make the case, and I want to go see. We should go see the documentary.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll give you a
Yeah.
report on that.
Probably the best Duke of Mantua I've ever heard. There's a great live recording of him on Doro. What else could you say he would be the best of the best? All the Donizetti.
Maybe it's
The best, maybe the best Alfredo. It's difficult to find a pleasing Alfredo, in my opinion. Maybe
Yeah.
the best Rodolfo.
They all sound like Luigi Alva.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to La Boheme, there's no KJ Manina better
No,
than Pavarotti in the late 60s.
that's
through the
because
70s.
Pavarotti is a. I think it also people need to understand that Pavarotti was the best at everything that he sang. Whether he was actually the best
Correct.
dramatically,
Yeah.
the correct person to be singing it, but Pavarotti was a synthesis, a product of the recorded age, because he was a synthesis of every tenor that he ever listened to's best approaches and best phrasings and best turns of phrase, the little scooped inflections of the approach to a high note of
Right.
Di Stefano. And, he listens and all of anything that's not necessarily pleasing, like the downward portamento of a Gigli or some of the like pitch-wise aggression of a Martinelli, he just leaves those out. But he keeps all the pleasing bits.
Right.
And that's why he was the perfect tenor.
Yeah.
It's down to his ear. That's what it was.
It's impossible to
'Cause he didn't even read
overstate
music.
the beauty of that voice.
No, it's absolutely. And also, it's difficult to overstate the beauty and the acumen of that musical intuition. That's what he was. He was musical intuition itself.
Yeah.
Didn't have much of a brain, but I mean, but he
Yeah.
had intuition,
Yeah, but when
and
you watch
that's
him,
what counts.
when you watch him sing Vesti la Juba in Pagliacci, I don't believe he's going to go kill someone after that. When you watch
No, but you
Delmonico
sure heard
sing
it.
Vesti la Juba, I think he's actually going to kill the soprano in real life.
I actually think he's probably killed several sopranos in
Delmonico.
several different productions leading to this
Yeah.
point.
No,
I'm not sure any
it's
of them
such
survived.
A different thing,
No, absolutely it is. But again, this is pure musicianship versus voice type versus Fach versus the
Yeah.
certain versus voice types.
Right, but
you know,
this is why singers like, my point is, this is why singers like Alanya get pushed, because it sells tickets. Alanya's singing Trovatore.
But at that time...
his voice did not stand up to it. Or maybe he tried to make it more legitimate than Pavarotti.
He just overpowered it. He did the same thing Leach did. He just overpowered the top, and he blew out the top because it wasn't that kind of a power voice. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I honestly think that particularly Alanya, because he was French. You know, he had an Italian name, but he was French.
Yeah.
You know, he was a French tenor. And it was a huge missed opportunity for the revival of a particular repertoire, which you have to be it helps to be a certain voice type and have a certain affinity, for the language and culture to be the authority on that. And he could have done it.
And it is legitimate, and it is.
But at that time, the recording industry was still very much in full force, and it was the record contracts that
because
did it.
Someone like Juan Diego Flores made bel canto popular again, even though I'm not a fan. I think it's way too. I mean,
Carlo Bergonzi.
No, recently.
Oh, recently.
Yeah, Juan Diego Flores is a figure of the late '90s through.
No, I remember hearing of him.
Yeah. His Daughter of the Regiment lit the Met on fire, but that's all he could do. But it brought those operas to a new audience in a more preeminent way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it helps to have somebody in every generation.
Who's focused on that. He knew his lane. He knew his forte.
But yes, I mean, but an Italian bel canto is fiery and fast and fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's why French Romantic opera is a bit more of a difficult sell. Stuff like some of the Poliuto by Gounod and things like that. But if you can do it that beautifully, that's a different type of selling point. It wasn't what they wanted at the time, because they wanted, give us more Pavarotti, give us more.
Yeah, the three tenors effect was still fully.
But that's all gone now. That's gone. Yeah. You make the recording and then you back it up with performances, at La Scala and things like that, and that's what blew him out. But that's all gone now. So.
Yeah. It's just
how do we reignite the audience?
Don't tell the unions that.
How do we reignite? Yeah, really. How do we reignite the audience? How do we give them the frequency that lets them determine, like we said, spectacular from standard, from below standard, or just below standard, or better than average?
Yeah. I mean, well, even the Met HD movie theater experience doesn't allow you to experience the voice because the dynamic range is static.
Right, exactly. It's like having a volume limiter on a microphone.
Because you can hear. So I went and saw Otello. They reprised the Otello with the late Johann Botha and Renee Fleming, and the opening scene was just as loud as their love duet.
That shouldn't happen.
No, and you hear this. The music's loud, and then suddenly it gets soft, and you hear this.
And this is
you hear them crank the mics up. You hear the white noise, and so it's still an unsatisfactory.
This is another audience education point, and that is there's a difference between hearing and listening. You can't just expect to have the volume level constantly fed to you as if you're in your living room. This isn't your living room. This is a live experience. And what's needed really even more than your hearing is your attention. Attentive listening and focused perception. I mean, if the singer's voice, we have a 3,000 seat theater here. That's a big hall. But Virginia Sublett sang, and who doesn't have that big of a voice, but she sang the Queen of the Night here in the Magic Flute after doing it at City Opera, and she didn't sing it any louder here than she did there, but she made the audience listen to her. Mm-hmm. The audience's attention came right down to what she was doing, and it was spectacular. I still think that, Virginia. And that's the difference between hearing and listening. It's not always going to be a perfect auditory experience, but that means you have to listen harder.
Yeah.
And listening is done with the mind, not just the ears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The audience needs to know that. I don't think they know that anymore. And
right.
And companies
Right.
then, they amplify and they want to make it more stereo friendly.
Right.
Well, this isn't a stereo. This is a live opera house.
Well, part of it is the goal of almost every business to consumer interaction is to remove friction, so that the consumer doesn't have to think or do anything at all.
Yeah, but you know
can
what
just
happens?
say,
You know what happens?
Alexa, get me opera tickets.
Yeah,
and
but-
it happens.
This is the same idea with suppositories too. But you know what happens when you get friction? You get heat.
Yeah,
And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, you've got an experience that's on fire.
yeah. So
And
this is
that's what it's all about.
It's a retraining. I'm retraining myself constantly we have to retrain ourselves to be proactive, be involved in, like you're saying, listen carefully, listen with your, not just your mind, but listen to with your heart as well.
And when you bring your focus and your attention down to that moment of performance, you may be sitting behind a pillar or something. Well, not in San Diego, but I mean, you may have to, crane your neck or something, or you maybe, you're not in the best acoustic vantage point, but if your attention is there and you hear something, you experience something truly spectacular, you will enjoy it all the more for the effort
Yeah.
that you made. I mean,
Yes.
you have to put in the effort. You have to put in the effort of attention and, tuning out the imperfections of the situation and focusing on the extraordinary thing that's happening. And that same goes in any concert hall, whether it's opera or symphony or chamber music
Right.
or recital or whatever. That's what the audience, that takes strength. It takes strength. The audience has to be, that's what being cultivated means. It means you've gone through artistic exercise.
Yeah.
You've strengthened your responses and your attention.
Preach, John. This is good.
Hallelujah. No, I'm serious. That's what it's all about, and that's what my mission and part of our mission here is, to try to enliven the audience to that reality, because
Yeah.
the audience is a critical part. It's the other half of the artistic experience. If you've only got the performers and no one hears it, who are they preaching to?
Right.
Whether it's live in a concert hall or they're watching on streaming or whatever, the fact is there's got to be the other half.
Well, that's what I wrote about the Beethoven Violin Concerto at mainly Mozart with Augustin Hadlick, was it all aligned. Beethoven, Hadlick, Francis, that group of musicians, the venue itself, and the audience.
And the audience.
Yeah.
You could feel the focus. You could literally feel the
Yeah.
feeling of focused attention was tangible. It was like you were in the cone.
Yeah.
There was none of this out here. It was all focused right there.
Yeah.
And there were moments when he literally, the audience, he took the audience's breath away a couple of times, and people just went, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was absolutely extraordinary.
Exactly.
And who else did that was Pepe Romero. I think when that encore of the piece by his father that he played, he was suddenly playing a section where he was plucking on the fretboard and plucking the strings up the fretboard for a very sort of constricted sound, a very lightly plucked sound, and it just sparkled. There's a 75-year-old man up there giving it the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure experience, and the audience just went, oh.
Yeah.
There was the feeling of delight in that was palpable.
Yeah.
And it's moments like those that, if you're paying attention, you've got a memory that will feed you for a lifetime. And that's what our audience. That's why people need
Right.
to.
It opens you up to experience life just a little bit more on your own emotional terms. It's a freeing. It's and freedom is always. I don't want to get too philosophical. I really do, but we're
coming down to it because we're getting about the hour mark.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to chop this in a few pieces.
Okay.
I think. Anyway, freedom always arrives because of something has been removed, not because freedom shows up. Freedom is always there.
Right.
But you've got chains on. You got the chains have to come off, and you're free. It's not like freedom was already all around you.
Well, this is why music was so important in the former Soviet Union. I mean, why it's been so, and in various cultures with limited freedom. That when you're able to release yourself into the experience of the music and share that moment with you're completely free to do that. And they valued that experience very, very much.
Yeah.
For everything from poetry readings to concert halls to recitals to house music.
Yeah.
But
and so it's in those live performances when you're just a little bit. It's when your heart grows, maybe not 3 sizes, maybe
many sizes.
0.3 size, 0.3% of a size, but it gives you freedom. It allows more freedom to enter into your experience.
But you're also free.
Life.
You're also free, and as an audience member in classical music, when you have cultivated this sense of relative values, and you can sort of compare one thing to another, and sort of orient yourself in the hierarchy of experience, you also then earn the right to have opinions, and you have the right to express yourself. And sometimes you don't like it. But you know what? Sometimes companies need to know that you don't like it so that they then get better.
Right.
It also, what I'm saying is, it also inculcates responsibility. The exercise of cultivation builds up responsibility, and that responsibility, I think, has a bleed over effect into society at large. And that's why we need arts. That's why we need people who respond to arts, and because it makes for a stronger society. It makes for stronger individuals and a stronger corporate society. So I really believe in the role of the audience.
And it's not like we can't do it, because our culture currently does do it. We just do it about things like Sandy Koufax versus Roger Clemens and Nolan Ryan. Fine. I'm saying the ability is there, but people put in the time and the attention.
Let's also do it against, how about the production of last season's Florencia and Los Amazonas versus this year's Carmen? Or how about if we compare one performance to another? Because some people thought it was that rewarding that they actually saw all 4. That third performance was the one where he really got it.
Right.
That's also a comparison worth having.
Yeah.
That's when you're on fire.
Right. What I'm saying is, we do this with sports. We do this with movies. We do this with Marvel movies.
But we think it's impolite to do it with the arts.
But we think it's impolite to do with the arts.
And it's not. It's necessary.
And we certainly do it with politics. We're not going to talk politics because...
No.
But
that's for another podcast. I mean, a different podcast.
Yes,
somebody else's podcast. This is about the arts.
Right.
And it's about, like I say, that's why I'm a concert goer as well as a performer. I get as much out of going to concerts almost as I do in performing itself, because I see myself as exercising a responsibility in both roles. I really do. I think, by showing up and experiencing the concert environment and then trying to relate it and weave it together into a broader social context, I think that's a very responsible act.
It is.
And I think it's something that a lot of people should do. Everybody who can should do it.
Absolutely.
So anyway.
Yeah.
So that we have reviewed, we have
pontificated.
We've pontificated, we've philosophized, and
we probably masturbated a little bit too.
Well, verbally.
Yes, verbally. That's definitely a different podcast. That would be more of a webcam.
I think you just got us banned from Google, as a matter of fact, by saying that word.
No, you can do that.
Can you?
That's fine.
Oh, well,
yes,
never.
That's allowed.
Well, anyway,
I won't say what you can't do, because then.
Yeah, right. Well, then we'd be banned from Google.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
right. There we go.
Next week, Pavarotti documentary.
Yes.
The Pavumentary.
The Pavumentary.
La Jolla Music Fest.
Preview.
And looking forward into Symphony Season 2019-20. And maybe even some Summer Pops highlights.
Maybe.
I'm a big Pops goer. I believe in the Pops.
When the guy made the comment about the 1812 overture?
Yes, that's right. What did he say? He said he was the oboist.
No, he was a violist.
The violist.
Yeah.
From Rochester?
Utah.
Utah.
Yeah, he wanted to bottle the mainly Mozart experience and take it back with him and see how many renditions of the 1812 overture
that bottle would last.
Yeah.
That was a genius. Genius weekend. That was a genius comment.
That was good.
That was a genius comment.
That's so great.
That pretty well encapsulates much of the musical experience.
Mm-hmm. I talked to him later about it, and because I said, I was like, yeah, that was my gateway drug when I was 9. It was the 1812 overture. And he goes, me too. He was like, one side was that, the other side was Capriccio Italiano. I was like, yep. Or I said, or maybe March Slav was on mine.
It was the Espagne Rhapsody for me.
Yeah.
You know, Chabrier. I'm a big fan, you know.
But I mean, I had a Tchaikovsky cassette, the 1812 overture on one side, and the other side was, I believe, the March Slav, and his was 1812 and Capriccio Italiano. And I just wore that thing out.
It's a gateway to so many life decisions.
But once I got to, when I became a man, I put childish things behind me. And Tchaikovsky would agree with me. We're out!